There is a kind of discipline that does not falter. Not when your body aches, not when the world seems to conspire against you, and not when every part of you begs for rest. It is the kind of discipline that turns ordinary individuals into unshakable warriors, capable of facing challenges most would flee from. But how is such unwavering commitment possible? The answer lies in an ancient system known as NINPO, the way of the invisible warrior. Long before abstract habits or coaches gave motivational speeches, the shinobi of feudal Japan mastered this system. They lived in secrecy, trained in solitude, and endured conditions that would break most people. Yet, their discipline was not about sheer willpower, it was about survival, about forging a mindset that moves automatically, even when the body protests. NINPO is not a fleeting spark of determination. It is a carefully honed structure that rewires the mind, teaching it to act without hesitation, to maintain focus under pressure, and to execute with precision. In this video, we are going to uncover the secrets of NINPO. You will follow the journey of a young boy who, despite failing repeatedly, discovers how to cultivate unbreakable discipline through practice, structure, and mental fortitude. By the end, you will see how these ancient principles can transform anyone willing to commit fully, revealing the hidden power that lies dormant within us all. If you have ever struggled with motivation, consistency, or staying committed to your goals, this story will give you a roadmap for transformation. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the lessons from this timeless system. Let us dive into the world of NINPO, where discipline becomes second nature, and ordinary effort becomes extraordinary mastery. In the quiet village of Iga Prefecture, in the year 1540, there lived a boy named Tishi. Though the villagers had long since given him a mocking nickname, Tishi the Lazy, from the moment he first glimpsed the silhouettes of Shinobi gliding silently across the rooftops at night, he had been captivated by their skill, their precision, and the almost otherworldly calm with which they moved. Tishi dreamed of becoming like them, of mastering a discipline so complete that nothing in the world could sway him from his path. Yet, every day, he confronted the stubborn truth of his own inaction. Each morning, he promised himself that today would be different, that he would train, meditate, or practice his sword techniques. And he failed. 3 push-ups, 2 minutes of meditation, a few awkward swings of his wooden sword, his body and mind surrendered before he could truly begin. By afternoon, any resolve he had mustered dissolved entirely, leaving only frustration and self-reproach. Tishi's father, a blacksmith of practical and unyielding temperament, offered no encouragement. He had calloused hands, a mind shaped by the hammer and anvil of the forge, and no patience for dreams he deemed fanciful. Shinobi are stories your imagination has crafted, he would say. You will learn my trade, and nothing else. And yet, no matter how many times he was told to abandon his ambition, Tishi's eyes wandered nightly to the distant mountains, where rumor spoke of a hidden school where the true shinobi honed their art in secrecy. Every morning, he awoke with a flicker of hope, convinced this might be the day he could finally begin, and every evening, that hope dissolved in the face of his own weakness. One day, as he trudged home from yet another fruitless afternoon of practice in the forest, Tishi encountered a man who seemed to appear out of nowhere. Standing in the middle of the path with eyes that seemed to pierce straight through him. There was nothing remarkable about the man's clothing or stature, yet the intensity in his gaze made Tishi shiver. You want to be a shinobi, the man said, not as a question but as an undeniable statement. His presence carried a weight that left no room for evasion or excuse. Come with me. If you can keep up, I will show you where the school is. If not, return to your forge life and accept it. The path ahead was steep, 3 hours of grueling climb through jagged terrain. the likes of which Tishi had never endured in his life. For the first hour, the climb seemed manageable, but as his legs burned and his lungs struggled, the familiar chorus of excuses arose in his mind, whispering that he was not cut out for this, that he should turn back and try another day. Yet the man did not falter. And slowly, something within Tishi shifted. He realized that the battle was not with the mountain or the cold or the weight of his own body, it was with the part of himself that had always given up. Every muscle screamed. Every thought tempted him to surrender. But the clarity in the man's voice reminded him of a truth he had never grasped before. A warrior keeps their word, no matter the cost. By the time he reached the summit, crawling on hands and knees, tears and sweat mingling on his face, Tishi was transformed in a way he could not yet name. He collapsed, utterly spent, and when he awoke, he found himself inside the quiet, incense-scented temple of the Koga school. The man was there, calm and unwavering, acknowledging his arrival with a simple statement. "You have completed the first lesson of NINPO without even knowing it." In that moment, Tishi understood that the journey ahead was not merely about strength or skill, it was about reshaping the very essence of who he was. And that transformation had only just begun. As Tishi stepped into the quiet halls of the Koga school, he realized that ambition alone would not carry him forward. The path of the shinobi was not paved with inspiration or fleeting determination. It was constructed from principles that reached deep into the way a person lived, breathed, and moved. His master, the man who had appeared on the mountain path, began to reveal the structure behind the unbreakable discipline he sought. The first lesson was deceptively simple. Commitment was not something to whisper to oneself in the solitude of a bedroom or a quiet morning. It had to be declared, witnessed, and woven into the very identity of the practitioner. Tishi understood slowly, as the weight of eyes on him at the first morning assembly pressed into his chest, that when he spoke his vow aloud, he was no longer merely promising to try, he was transforming himself, shedding the boy who hesitated and claiming the mantle of one who acts without compromise. This public declaration, known in the school as Ketsui, became the cornerstone of his journey, an invisible chain that anchored his will to action, binding him to a version of himself that could no longer retreat into excuses. Even with this new identity, Tishi quickly learned that resolve alone was not enough. His mind was a battlefield of indecision, 1,000 micro-choices each morning sapping his energy before he had even begun. The master introduced the principle of the unchanging rhythm, a way to remove time as a negotiable variable, and to structure life so that the body and mind moved in harmony with a fixed schedule. The bell at dawn was no mere alarm. It was a signal that shaped the very cadence of his existence. Over weeks, Tishi felt his body adapting, rising before the sound of the bell, muscles and mind aligning naturally to the sequence of his training. By surrendering to this unchanging rhythm, he freed himself from the constant chatter of choices that had always undermined his progress. But was only the surface. Beneath it lay Kata, the practice of perfect form repeated day after day, without variation, until movement itself became instinct. Each push-up, each squat, each sword stroke was executed in the same precise sequence. And though boredom and mental resistance tested him, Tishi learned that repetition was not stagnation, but the clearing of space for awareness to sharpen, for the subtleties of motion to reveal themselves in ways thought impossible. He began to notice the minutiae of his own movements, the tiny corrections that separated mediocrity from mastery. Even this was insufficient unless combined with Mu-kyū, the principle of practicing without gaps. Tishi came to understand that perfection was an illusion. What mattered was continuity, maintaining momentum even in the face of illness, fatigue, or storms. On days when he could only manage a fraction of the exercises, he performed them anyway, preserving the invisible thread of habit that would carry him through any disruption. This unwavering continuity became a shield against the unpredictable, a structure that made inconsistency inconceivable. Finally, the master introduced Zen-gi, the art of prior preparation. Life was not a controlled environment, and a shinobi would always face unforeseen challenges. Teishi learned to anticipate obstacles, planning responses in advance so that when the unexpected arose, his actions were automatic, decisive, and unhesitating. Each scenario, from injury to inclement weather to family emergencies, had a preordained solution, leaving no space for doubt or delay. In weaving these 5 pillars into the fabric of his daily life, Teishi's transformation accelerated, and he began to perceive the invisible threads of discipline binding the chaos of existence into a coherent, unbreakable path. What once had been a boy prone to hesitation and distraction was now forming into a living embodiment of NINPO, a practitioner whose identity, rhythm, form, momentum, and foresight merged into a single, unstoppable force. By the 3rd week of his rigorous training, Teishi began to notice a subtle yet profound change within himself. The struggle that had once consumed his mornings, the internal debates about whether to rise, whether to exert himself, whether to honor his oath, was beginning to lose its grip. Each day, as the bell rang, he moved through the motions with a growing sense of inevitability, as though his body remembered before his mind even had a chance to question. The repetition of kata, the precision of every push-up, squat, and sword strike performed in the same sequence, coupled with the unyielding rhythm of ri, was rewiring the way his mind approached action. Where hesitation had once been a constant companion, now clarity began to emerge. He no longer wasted energy deciding. The energy once consumed by thought now flowed unimpeded into execution. The first time Teishi truly understood the power of this transformation was in the middle of a grueling sword practice. His arms trembled, sweat dripping from his brow. Yet he noticed something extraordinary. He could observe the subtleties of his own movements in real time. The alignment of his wrist, the trajectory of the blade, the rhythm of his feet, it all unfolded naturally, as though his consciousness had been freed from the tyranny of micro-decisions and was now available to witness, analyze, and refine. This, his master had explained, was the secret hidden in the science of habit. By repeatedly performing the exact same sequence in the same context, the basal ganglia, the part of the brain responsible for habitual actions, had assumed control, while the prefrontal cortex, the seat of conscious deliberation and willpower, was liberated to perform higher-order thinking. What had once felt like an overwhelming mental battle against fatigue, distraction, and desire had become a flowing, almost meditative process, a dance between mind and body that was as automatic as breathing. Even when illness struck, Teishi discovered the resilience this structure had cultivated. A fever that might have once justified a full day of rest now became a test of ingenuity rather than surrender. He performed a reduced version of his training, maintaining momentum without creating a gap, understanding that consistency, not perfection, was the true measure of strength. His mind no longer argued with itself, it simply acted. Rain, storms, and other environmental challenges became additional layers of learning, each session reinforcing that discipline was not about comfort or convenience, but about the unwavering execution of intention. The transformation extended beyond physical stamina. Teishi found that his thoughts no longer oscillated between can I and should I. The preordained sequences, the public oath, and the practice without gaps had fused into a rhythm that bypassed indecision entirely. His mind operated with a clarity and focus that others would have called superhuman. Yet it was the natural result of a system that aligned brain and body in perfect synchrony. He had become the living demonstration of neuroscience principles. Repeated, consistent practice shapes the neural pathways, automates action, and frees cognition for observation, insight, and precise adaptation. By day, Tishi moved through his training with a calm certainty. The internal resistance that had once defined his mornings was now a distant memory, replaced by a seamless flow of action. His awareness sharpened, not because he willed it, but because his nervous system had learned to operate beyond hesitation. Each movement was both deliberate and automatic, each breath and step synchronized with the invisible rhythm of the NINPO system. In this state, Tishi had become not only stronger and faster but profoundly lucid. His consciousness no longer bogged down by the constant negotiation with himself. The boy who had struggled to do 3 push-ups was now a living illustration of how discipline, repetition, and structure can transform not only the body but the mind, revealing the remarkable interplay between habit, neural automation, and the unshakable clarity that emerges when internal resistance is finally conquered. As the 100th day of his grueling shuyo arrived, Tishi felt a quiet anticipation, a subtle tension that came not from excitement but from the unknown transformation that awaited him. The ritual bell sounded, and he moved through his practice with a fluidity and precision that no longer demanded conscious effort. Each push-up, squat, breath, and swing of the sword flowed seamlessly from one movement to the next, a rhythm so natural it seemed almost as if his body and mind had merged into a single, unwavering force. It was in this extraordinary moment that he realized he had reached a state the master had called Mushin, the mind of no mind, not a mindless repetition, but a liberation from hesitation, ego, and internal conflict. For the first time, Tishi acted without the familiar tug of doubt or the nagging question of whether he was capable, whether he deserved to continue, or whether it was acceptable to pause. The mental friction that had plagued him for so many years, the silent debates in the darkness of his room, the excuses whispered to himself in moments of weakness had vanished entirely. What remained was pure action, instantaneous and precise, guided by instinct refined through the structure of the NINPO system. The oath he had declared publicly, the unchanging rhythm, the perfect form, the practice without gaps, and the prior preparation for every conceivable obstacle had converged, creating an identity that no longer needed reinforcement or self-congratulation. He was not merely following orders or checking tasks off a list. He had become the embodiment of disciplined action itself. Walking through the temple halls, Tishi noticed the eyes of other students upon him, some wide with awe, others narrowing in quiet comparison. Yet he felt no need to respond or assert himself. There was no thought of judgment, no concern for recognition, only a serene clarity that radiated from the integration of his body and mind. Even when confronted with a sudden challenge, whether a change in training conditions or the arrival of an unexpected visitor, his responses were instantaneous and appropriate, executed without hesitation, as if he were in perfect alignment with the natural flow of events around him. The prior struggle to choose, to weigh options, or to battle internal resistance had been replaced with the effortless authority of someone who no longer questioned their path, because their very being had absorbed it. This transformation went far beyond physical capability. It touched the essence of Tishi's identity. No longer did he see himself as the boy who had stumbled through morning exercises, who had faltered under the weight of doubt and fatigue. That version of himself had been sacrificed, and in its place stood a new person, forged not by talent or external rewards, but by the relentless application of structure, repetition, and unwavering commitment. He had become someone who simply was, someone whose discipline was inseparable from existence itself, whose word and action were unified in a way that rendered failure inconceivable. By the close of the 100th day, Tishi's transformation was palpable even to those who had trained alongside him. He moved with an ease that concealed the immense struggle it had taken to reach this state. Yet the aura of confidence and competence was undeniable. His mind operated with a quiet efficiency. His body responded instinctively to any challenge, and his actions flowed without friction or delay, in that profound silence of completion. Tishi understood that Mushin was not a reward or a title. It was a natural state that arose when the mind surrendered negotiation, when the ego dissolved, and when action and being became one. In those final hours of the 100-day journey, Tishi no longer thought about whether he was disciplined. He simply was. The hesitation, the excuses, the fleeting desire to pause or vary his routine, they were all gone. In their absence, there remained only clarity, precision, and an unshakable alignment between identity and action. What had begun as the struggle of a boy seeking to find his place had culminated in the emergence of a warrior whose discipline was absolute, whose mind was unclouded, and whose presence embodied the enduring power of Mushin, a transformation that transcended effort and became a natural state of being. Months had passed since Tishi completed his 100-day shuyo, and the boy who had once struggled to do 3 push-ups without giving up had become a figure of quiet, unyielding power. His transformation was not merely physical. It had reshaped his very essence. When faced with the first real mission, a week-long infiltration of an enemy stronghold to retrieve vital intelligence, Tishi approached it with a calm clarity that astonished even his most seasoned peers. 7 days of little sleep, scarce nourishment, and relentless pressure would have broken almost anyone else. Yet for Tishi, the ordeal was met not with panic or hesitation but with a steady, measured resolve. Every step, every decision, every action flowed from the identity he had forged in those 100 days, a warrior who simply was. The other shinobi watched him and wondered aloud how someone could maintain such consistency under extreme conditions. Yet Tishi's answer was deceptively simple. He did not struggle to be disciplined. He was discipline incarnate. There was no need for motivation, no need for reminders or encouragement, because the old self, the self that debated, hesitated, and negotiated, had been left behind. What remained was a version of Tishi who had fully embraced the principles of NINPO, the public oath that fused action with identity, the unchanging rhythm that removed hesitation, the precise and repetitive practice that automated skill, the commitment to maintain momentum regardless of circumstance, and the foresight to preplan responses to every conceivable obstacle. As Tishi's reputation grew, so did the reactions of those around him. Some admired his unwavering focus, others felt a quiet intimidation, sensing a level of discipline they could not reach. Comments about being extreme or obsessive became common, yet he did not falter or feel the need to explain himself. This discomfort in others was, in fact, the hallmark of true mastery. When discipline begins to unsettle the ordinary, when your consistency exposes the compromises that others make, you know that you have reached a level beyond mere effort, a level where extraordinary results are no longer an aspiration but an expectation. The video concludes with a reminder that such transformation is not for those seeking temporary improvement or easy gains. It is a call to fully commit, to sacrifice the old self that negotiates with excuses and doubts, and to embrace the rigorous path that leads to unshakable action. Discipline, when applied in this way, is not simply a habit. It becomes the foundation of identity, the force that aligns thought, body, and intent toward goals that once seemed impossible. In Tishi's journey, we see that greatness is rarely achieved by incremental motivation alone. It requires the deliberate destruction of hesitation, the meticulous construction of routine, and the courage to endure discomfort when everything in life seems to conspire against you. As we close this story, consider your own challenges and the ways in which hesitation, inconsistency, or the search for motivation might be holding you back. The principles of NINPO are timeless. Make a commitment publicly. Remove the variable of time. Repeat practice with precision. Maintain momentum under any circumstance. And plan responses in advance for every obstacle. Apply them not as a superficial exercise but as a transformation of identity, and you may discover a version of yourself capable of achieving far more than you ever imagined. Thank you very much for watching. If you found value in Tishi's journey and the lessons of the NINPO system, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you never miss future content that helps you unlock your own potential. Your commitment to learning and growth starts with one decision today: choose to act.